Yeah, it
Well,
really.
and you just went live too.
What's that?
You just went live too, so just so you know.
I don't have my button.
I'm just letting you know.
Should I just go live 2 minutes before the meeting to catch us off guard?
Yeah, hot mic once.
I don't, because if something goes down and then you try to pull it back up, and technically, like, in this part of the meeting, and
Can you put
somebody.
this on delay?
I'm sorry?
Can you put it on delay, like a minute delay?
It is on a delay, it is running on a delay, but I have to have it start, they recommended starting it 2 minutes early in case something should fail. You can see it right away and it gives you time to pull it back up.
So you can leave Scott with that
So
one.
everybody read your instruction sheet for the button, up and down.
Well, anyway, by my book, it's 7, so.
Close
You
enough.
got the recorder?
It
Oh, it just
automatically
does it
records.
now? Oh, how nice.
All right, welcome, everybody. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Village of Middlefield Planning and Zoning Commission, February 9th, 2021. Leslie, would you take roll, please?
Sure. Dietrich,
Here.
Klein,
Yes.
Harlan,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
Here?
Schaefer.
Here.
Sorry about that.
All right, any additions or deletions this evening, Leslie?
No, I don't have any. John?
I do not.
All right, we have our minutes from January 12th. Everybody had a chance to review.
Move their approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, yes, Jim, you missed last one, I forgot that. Thank you. All right, we have no public hearings tonight, so old business number 1 is discuss zoning needs for Briar Hill project, an approximate 4.2 acre site at 14800 to 14820 North State Ave, comprised of 4 different parcels, 19-055200, 055000, 055400, and 012500. The consolidation's already been approved, but looking at rezoning the property. John or Leslie, you want to start us off?
Oh, yes, thank you, Scott. Well, we were forwarded the site plan yesterday, so I had a chance to look at it. And, there's a couple ways you can go about the rezoning of this. As you know, it is zoned general commercial currently. So I'm thinking the easiest thing to do would be senior residential community. It's a district that's already established in our zoning code. The only downside that I could see is that the amount of units per acre, it's over by like about one and a half units per acre. But that's the only issue I can really see in that regard. And the nice thing about the SR residential district, it fits with everything that Andy is planning to do there. The accessory uses, the coffee shop, the clubhouse, that's in the code already. But what could potentially happen, should things be favorable and the zoning be changed to an SR residential, senior residential community, is that after it's established, a variance could occur that allows for the increased units per acre. Four is the maximum per acre under the SR. The planned unit development is also 4 units per acre.
And how many units total are on this property with this design?
23,
That counts the existing houses that are already there?
correct.
Okay.
20
Gotcha.
And then, there's a lot of regs with the planned unit development. If you look at our zoning code, for example, the SR senior residential community has basically 1 page, whereas the planned unit development has like 9 pages of regs. So the planned unit development would require a number of studies, traffic study, population impact study, evaluation. There's a lot of things that would need to be done for that, so.
Well, at the last meeting, we basically talked about going to a PUD. So with the senior residential coming up now, was that a brainstorm through everybody talking about it, or how did that come up as a, I mean, it makes some sense to me, but how'd that come up?
It came about, well, Andy and I have been talking about it recently as today. As I said, I just got the drawings yesterday, so I had to do a real quick look at it. But Leslie and I have talked about it. There seems to be some concern about the number of units per
Wait,
acre.
wait just a minute. You need to get on a mic, Tom. You need to get on a mic. Come on. Yeah. You supposed to sit here? Where's
Well,
the
there's
mic?
no mic there.
I'm gonna move this mic down. I'm gonna move down. Jim, you can slide a little bit, maybe.
What's up, Thomas? Yeah, up is on. All right, go ahead, continue, John.
Well, there was concern from the architect in regards to the number of units per acre, and but, you know, either way, I mean, you could do a custom PUD too for the project, but if you already have a code established to make that happen, you know, my suggestion or recommendation would be to use what you have.
And what is it zoned across the street?
Across the street,
Yeah.
meaning the
The current-
Briar Hill
The nursing
complex.
home where it's at now,
General.
what's,
General commercial.
okay. Dave, you're kind of our expert planning person. What's your thoughts on?
Any of that senior zoning anywhere in this village now?
Casa Lucia.
I should have moved in.
Casa,
Lucia, is that zoning now?
yeah, it has the senior residential district is the Casa Lucia area.
I think we created it then, didn't we?
Yeah, but I assumed from looking at when things were done, but I don't know, I wasn't here.
I think we did. We created that at that time, I believe.
Is there any downside to using the senior residential for this application here?
If you're reading the code on it, the only thing that wouldn't fit, you know, with anything, like if you wanted to do a hair salon in there, a little restaurant for the residents in there, coffee shop, all of that is already included in that code, in that zoning district. The only thing that wouldn't be fitting would be the density. So it would be kind of, you could always do a PUD. I just happened to mention it to John that, hey, this is already on the books and you do already have an example of it. It does require 55 and over living for at least the majority of the occupants of the home. That is one of the rules that are in that type of code. I don't know if you guys would want to change that to not make it age restrictive or whatever, but
Well, that's your plans for those units anyway, right? Yeah, you could go 75 and older, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I did not look at this at all. Nobody said anything about that. We were talking about our
Yeah,
PUD.
That's the first I've heard this tonight. It's like, so we're talking about something that I didn't even know existed.
no, it was just an idea.
Kind of an idea, been nice if we had had the idea the day before.
Yeah, it literally happened maybe an hour before the streets meeting, so.
Well, I think the history on that over there, that was pretty much formulated for that site.
Yeah,
And
that's my recollection.
Look, I understand it's an age-based zone and such, but that's really not particularly what this is all about either, what we're looking at tonight. And I just thought from a planning design perspective, this gave us more flexibility to go PUD.
The RPUD?
Yeah.
But
And
that was the
also,
beauty of an RPUD, all those issues of density and all those things, you had an easy workaround.
you got a plan
Yeah,
that you
got a
can
plan
fit.
unit development. Here's the plan, yes, we approve the plan.
Correct. So you worked the zoning around the plan. That was the
Right,
discussion.
The entire concept of the RPUD is everything's a trade-off. And so if you're over on density, maybe you give back on something else. And that you try to make everything fit for, not only for the lots you're zoned as, but also where else you're fitting into the community. Obviously, this is a good fit for where you're located. But you've also got some adjacent properties
Well,
that might have something to say. But
that's the thing too. I mean, it might give us some wiggle room in the future for some adjacent properties as well. I mean, this might, take off on some other adjacent areas, you see. So PUD might be a nicer fit, a nicer transition in that regard as well. So,
I look at the layouts, I mean, the density is a lot, which I knew we were going to have to talk about that, but if you look at those units, you could live in them. I
Yeah.
mean, if I was 35, I might want to live in one of them. I mean, the layout looks adequate. It's 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I mean, it's like, it could be something other than senior housing, I guess is my point. And maybe in 20 years, you'll say, hey, the Democrats have screwed the system up so bad, we got to get out of business. And it could be something, but then you've got the density to deal with as a non-facility, but it's like, it may be capable of being something else if it's just an RPUD.
Our ordinance, our PUD ordinance is designed for 20 acres or more, too. So this is 4.2 acres, so it doesn't fit exactly. So we're talking about something custom,
I still think, however, there's a way for our solicitor to work through these matters, these technical matters on acreage and such. I think the concept, however, from a zoning and planning standpoint, is more amenable to PUD. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, I drafted the RPUD zoning. I drafted the RPUD zoning, so, and I'm really not familiar with the other zoning, so
Yeah.
I'd really have to take a look at it. But I think, Dave, you may be right, the RPUD may fit this, particularly since it's really smaller lot that might give us more flexibility.
Well, and from a time frame of what you guys are looking to do from a build, does it matter as far as PUD or senior residential, as far as getting it rezoned and letting them be able to do their project? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Depends what you have the regulations be for the PUD. If you follow this, then they would have to produce the studies and bring it to the committee. You also have to, I think planning can waive, Tom, am I right, their hearing and go straight to a council hearing to change zoning, or do you need the two?
Planning can waive its hearing, but planning has to make a recommendation to council.
Okay, so the earliest that you could get that on, because of the 30-day notice, you can't do it in March, so it would be on the April one, only because there's 28 days in
Right.
February. So you could start the process of changing that with the first public meeting in April.
Right, although unless planning wanted to have a special meeting,
Yeah, unless planning want to have it.
we could do one by Zoom too.
On this drawing we have here does show an ingress off of Tear Creek, correct?
Is there any regulation in that creation, is there any regulation in the creation of that bypass that prohibited
Yes,
curb cuts?
yeah, so they had a couple years ago preliminary approval, and they would have to get official approval for the curb cut off at Tear Creek.
I don't have a problem with that, I just want to make sure if we have a regulation, that we get it modified.
Yeah, it would take an ordinance by council.
Right.
Right.
You would run that at the same time, I would assume, to be efficient when you're doing the change of zoning.
Yeah, and I would actually prefer there be a curb cut on Tear Creek, because I know my dad lived in that yellow house, Sweetbriar, and when you came out of there and you wanted to take a left and go north on 608, there's only room for 1 or 2 cars, so, I think having people go out onto Tear Creek's better, personally. And it looks like it's gonna be far enough away from the intersection of 608 that it, shouldn't be too hazardous.
Because it's far enough away from that left turn lane, which it should be.
Yeah, it looks like it's 300+ feet, so.
That cutoff 608 doesn't exist right now, right? That's also new, right? The cutoff 608?
That's actually partially the Dines property,
Yeah?
the old, fence home that was knocked down.
But that road, that entrance right there doesn't exist right
It's
now.
actually enlarging the existing driveway that's already there.
The driveway.
Yeah.
Okay, we're turning into a,
So the cut's there, it's just, it would be enlarging it.
And those first two are there as well, in between the houses?
Yeah.
Like, there's 3 curb cuts right now. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what that would do with
Or,
Russell had 2, right? Russell had an in and an out.
wondering where that is in relation to the exit from the bank?
further up. It's further north.
From the bank.
Yeah, it's not across the street from the bank. Because they're all on that side of,
Past Mark.
they're all on that side of Pierce.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys don't, I would assume you guys really don't care one way or the other, whether it's our PUD or senior. I mean, do we have to have all the traffic studies and everything with the PUD, Tom? Or can, like,
Council can waive that.
yeah, depending on,
I think John's point was, it's usually for a 20 or plus acre site, this is a 4 acre site. So
yeah.
Well, there's PUD and there's RPUD, and RPUD is a little more forgiving.
So with that, what they propose is going to be an RPUD? Tom?
Yeah, yeah.
The clubhouse and the,
I did not specifically look for the zoning because I didn't get a call about it, but
no, I'm saying, in an RPUD, what they propose with 20 units and a clubhouse, does that fit?
I believe that is within council's discretion, sure.
Conceptually, it fits, but there might be some, issues that we'll have to have council address,
Right. I
make it
mean,
work. That's the point.
All of this stuff has to be approved by council in any event, and that's the real advantage. Unlike other zoning, the PUD stuff all has to go through council.
It does allow for a community building or clubhouse in a PUD as an accessory use.
Well, and where the nursing home is right now, should that be general commercial or should that be something else? I mean, if we were going to start today and build a nursing home, what would we zone that?
General commercial. It's allowed in a general commercial.
Okay.
We changed the zoning of the nursing home because it used to be a conditional use, and that became a huge nightmare.
What I was wondering too is if we incorporated it in and rezoned it as well as this new parcel, and then if that extra acreage would solve the problem of the density. That's all I was getting at.
It might be, but then you've got the adjacent properties become orphans, and,
Well, you'd have to do it all.
well, and those people might object, or they might decide to put up,
Yeah.
you might start turning
I
that.
just meant their property.
Well, but then you've got to, when you start rezoning,
Yeah.
in that regard, you have to start considering that they might put up a gun shop or something,
Yeah.
and then you might be changing the character of the neighborhood. And that might not be, that might be contrary, it might produce the exact opposite result you want to produce.
Yeah, right. I got you.
So, I mean, it's not to say you might not want to do that, but you gotta start thinking about that.
Right.
So a residential type of zoning is probably a little more consistent with what they have. And then, as the mayor mentioned, these units that they're proposing they are kind of residential units anyway, so they don't really have to fit the nursing home use under the commercial
Yeah.
10, 20 years down the road.
Well, it's independent living is what we're talking about, so,
Right.
Okay.
Well, so what's our next step? It sounds like this committee would prefer it be a PUD versus, or an RPUD versus the senior. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yes.
So then, what's the next step that we need to do in order to move these guys along?
I
You
think
need to change
Andy,
the zoning.
yeah.
And so how do we have to take that to council, or how do we go about doing that then?
Yeah, that was the, where I was talking about, planning can waive their right to a meeting and give it to council, or you could call a special meeting. We do have to have 30 days notice, so unfortunately, it's not enough to get to the March because of the short month in between, the two meetings. So it would be the April, or like, you could call a special meeting.
I don't think we have to give council 30 days' notice.
No, if I don't need to give council 30 days notice, then I can get, we've always done it 30 days, so.
Do we want to take a little longer to look at the rezoning? We don't, again, I'd have to look, we don't, there was no rezoning request on the agenda. I haven't looked at to see it's been a while since we've had a rezoning request. I mean, we'd be waiving a whole bunch of things to,
Well, no, we're not looking to shortcut it, per se.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
so-
just saying, is what's our next step? That's what I'm
our
asking.
next step is to get a rezoning request before us, but we may want to take a look at the zoning. I mean, I could certainly do that with John and see if, I think we're leaning towards RPUD, but we can certainly talk about that and see if that impression is correct. And I could talk to Dave about it as well as John.
The last meeting, that's what we talked about, and we're going to be ready this meeting to do that.
Yeah, but Mayor, I didn't see any, I saw we're going to
So
get,
at last meeting, they came in and we said the zoning was improper up there. We said we should go to an RPUD
Yeah, I mean, that's in the minutes.
in the minutes. I mean, so why are we not ready to talk about RPUD? Like, it's not something new, it's been a month old.
because normally I didn't, nothing triggered me to start looking. I was here last meeting. Usually you have a rezoning request. So
Can I suggest that Andy's here, maybe he can give a presentation of the floor plans, what they look like, as well as how the exterior treatments look like. He brought these to the table to me between yesterday and today, so.
Sure, go ahead, Andy.
Well, so you commented on what we did so far with the stone on the oldest section of our facility that's currently standing. We're actually looking to build congruency with all of our facilities, and so we're gonna be doing, before we get to this, the 3 existing homes that you see on 608,
Right.
we're going to put that same stone facade on the outside on the 3 existing facilities. Not in its entirety, but a large asset in the front to really bring up the street presence. We can kind of tie it in with our existing facility. Then we're gonna be doing, all new siding and gutting the insides out down to the studs, reforming them into very similar to what Sweetbriar is currently right now, which is Rusty's old property. And so that particular unit there, what you're seeing, that whole front section there, we would put in as the stone, and we would make that into a duplex as opposed to the single family, putting 2 senior living residences in there. The corner unit. Yeah.
We're improving as far as space goes. When Anderson said we're doing similar to Sweetbriar, we're not putting as many bedrooms that are in Sweetbriar. We're creating larger bedrooms, larger space, and less bedrooms. So,
Sweetbriar has what, 4 units? 5, okay.
so, and then
so transversely, we'll do the same for the corner house on Terra Creek and 608. And then regarding our duplexes in the back, we want to call them garden cottages. And it's going to be similar. We're going to do the waterboarding band at the bottom with the stone that we have. And then we're going to be doing the board and batten vertical siding. You'll see there, going back, there we go. The top right there, you'll see the structures. So you'll have in the center the two one-car garage. We're going to enlarge those, make them a 10-foot car, single-car garage for the elderly getting in and out easy. And then you're going to have a little front porch in the front there, where they can set up rocking chairs and whatnot. And the nice thing that we did when we worked with the architects at RDL, because we didn't want to create it too congested, so we are actually allowing 30 feet spacing in between the duplexes there. And then we'll elevate that whole area with nice landscaping to bring in some nice green space and foliage.
There's 30 feet between those buildings?
Yes, where you see them in a row, there would be greater space in between, towards the end there, because it's farther back, but yeah.
Leslie, can you bring up this picture, please? So, that building on the far left, is that getting torn down?
Correct.
Okay, because I noticed that was gone, from the picture to the plan. And that's a single living house right now? What is that?
It's a barn, and the second floor has a rental, a little apartment in there.
Okay, but then that garage behind Sweetbriar, that's staying.
You hear him?
No, Andy, can you lean forward a little bit? Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a pain in the
that
neck.
barn right now on the back left is, well, it's a barn, but there is a second floor that has a one-bedroom apartment. And then the middle garage, the garage behind Sweetbriar, we're looking to keep,
Okay.
because it seems that we have 3 drivers always that live in Sweetbriar.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be a massive improvement to that corner, because, all that stuff back there's, pretty old, that parking lot's all chipped up. It's like gonna be a major improvement, for sure.
So the 4 acres, all of the 23 units, that's 4 acres? The 3 houses in front are on the 4 acre, including the 4 acres.
Correct.
Yeah. The
So John,
3
you mentioned that
houses are up
density is
front.
4 per acre? 4 per acre.
It's 5.4 with the current plan. Andy, Anderson, Andy, and Christian? Is that the, okay, thank you. Sweetbriar isn't listed as a housing unit. Is it going to be something else, or?
It'll remain the same function that it is today, 5 independent living units.
5 independent living units, because it's not identified on the site plan, so.
Just the exterior is getting refaced.
So that ups the units to like 28 units instead of 23.
And it's 4.2 acres? So what's that density then?
Correct.
7.3, you said.
Okay. Well, when you create an RPUD, Tom, can you, like right now, the village has a 4 units per acre density. When you do an RPUD, can that have its own density?
The code has a limitation on what the density can be in an RPUD. You can request council to grant a variance on that. But again, there are limitations to what you can do. I mean, there's some good reasons as to what the density is, particularly given what the density is elsewhere in the village. So, got to take a look at the reasons for that.
Don't forget to lean into your mic, Jim.
So the same type of a variance couldn't be requested for the senior zoning?
Yeah, the senior zoning was created when I wasn't here, so, and I'm not quite sure how that was set up or why it was set up that way.
So is there a risk of making it RPUD? If you grant 7.3 per acre with an RPUD, is there a risk of that? Because if you make it senior, then that's what it's for. Is there a risk to us if we make that an RPUD and give 7.3 to the guy that, the next Joe's Feet that comes in here and says, I want to put 6 units per acre up here in RPUD? What's the density of High Point? Do we know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to look it up in the files.
Well, and I will say this, when we put in Casa Lucia, it's, I think it was 40 units in there. Does that sound right, John? 40 units in Casa Lucia?
I'm not familiar with the project total. I think it's 35, something like that.
Yeah, it was up around there, and the land that sits on adjacent to the church was only like 4 acres, so they were way over density. So there's 10 acres of woods behind Casa Lucia. So when we did that rezoning for them, well, actually, we had to annex them into the village in the first place for that whole thing. When we did that, in order to meet the density, they dedicated those 10 acres behind the church, and I think it was a 20-year no-build. So those 10 acres became part of the site plan, so that then the 40 units of Casa Lucia met the 4 per acre, because they then added those 10 acres onto it. So that was something that was addressed during that time, just as
They don't have that option.
backup. No, I understand that, but I'm just pointing out what happened there for more history. That's why I was asking about using across the street to combine all the land together, so that maybe they could meet the density that way.
I think, you know, you said it's going to be a great improvement to that area. It's a nice project. We need to make it work, but I want to make sure that we don't get a bad project from it. Because of this, we get a bad project.
Right, well, what we want to do is that's why I'm saying we ought to take a look at the zoning, and maybe one of the restrictions is you make it RPUD, but you limit this RPUD so it can only be used for either nursing home use or adjacent to, yeah, I mean, there may be something, but we want to do this carefully. Because it's going to be some pretty specialized use, and we're stretching the limit pretty far on this. So, I mean, Andy, you've shown over a lot of 3 decades at least, I can see that, you know, making those kinds of exceptions seems to make sense for the village. So, but we got to make sure that down the road you sell to somebody else, that they don't push it to the next level and make us sorry that we made rules for you that we might not make for somebody else. So we got to put some restrictions on things, and we just want to make sure that we're doing it right.
Well, go ahead, Leslie.
I was just going to tell you, Scott, you had asked me to pull up the senior residential. So there's the code for it.
Well, so what it sounds like to me is the committee, Tom in particular, and Leslie and John need to have a month to go over this, and Dave, so that,
Couple weeks.
well, so for the next meeting, basically, we're ready to discuss it more intelligently on what all the pluses and minuses are of both. Mm-hmm.
So I guess my desire is to make this thing work.
Right.
Make sure that, as I said before, when this works, we don't pay for it the next time, for the next 20 years of people beating us over the head with what we did here.
Right.
That don't have the intentions that we have here tonight, so. I learned it from Tom Lee like 30 years ago.
Yeah. All right, and so what's your guys' next step? Like, you're going to start refacing those existing houses, right?
Yes, we will start on the corner property probably in about 3 weeks. It's just, I have a tenant in there that's moving out. She's actually almost all out, and we will, gut that and then section it off. The people that live just south of Sweetbriar are scheduled to move out at the end of April. So our plan is starting in probably about 3 weeks, is to gut out the 2 remaining rental properties that we have, and then reface the 3 properties probably in mid to late spring.
Okay. Well, so it sounds like our next step then is meet again, let you guys get all the different ideas of an RPUD, and then at the next meeting, be able to discuss it with all the parameters that we want in there, safeguarding the village and et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on this property tonight?
I think it's a great plan conceptually. Obviously, we want to drill down just a little bit more on, you know, the details and width of pavement and turning radius internally and landscape treatment, that sort of thing. But, you know, those are details that we can work through, obviously. But this, as a preliminary plan, I think it looks really well, looks really good.
Well, one thing now that you talked about turning radii, I know whenever we have like cul-de-sacs or the developers are in the middle, you know, put in phase 1, phase 2, they have to put something in for a fire engine turnaround. There's certainly no place for a fire engine to turn around in here.
I saw that.
So I don't know if that's anything that needs to be addressed or not, but that could definitely be, you know, if that fire truck pulled all the way into that last unit and then had to get out, it would be hard to even just back out of there, you know, let alone no room to turn around, so.
You may want to run that by somebody over the fire department, just to make sure you're not going to, because they could blow, everything has to get approved by them before you go too much farther.
Yeah, in
See if
fact,
they're going to.
Don't you have an ingress and can't you come in one ingress and go out different?
That's probably what the equipment would do. They wouldn't turn around. They would just follow and go through, you know.
God's saying, if you come up to this triplex at the end that tees it,
I see what you're talking about, yeah.
yeah, maybe that should be an egress right there.
you can work that out.
Yeah.
What I could do is I could send it over to the captain at the fire department for him to take a look at it and get some input.
You want to make sure they're good for the distance between the buildings too, but if you're talking 30 feet, they should be okay with that. But, you know, those are the kinds of details you want to make sure that they're okay with, so.
And I don't
That's
see
more than
really where
Woodsong.
I don't
Yeah.
see where the 30
Yeah,
feet is.
Woodsong's 10
It
feet.
definitely is.
Yeah, they don't look 30 feet.
I mean, then those buildings are,
The top part there, if you see, it says 30 feet up top, but then I was wrong, the bottom here is 20 feet distance.
Yeah, I got more like,
Between the two units this
18
way is
feet.
20 feet.
Correct, and then.
20?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then between the distance between the end cul-de-sac there is 30 feet.
All right, well, so then, you know,
You have, I didn't get any copies of the.
this stuff. You can have all these.
Say it again?
As an FYI, the people that are designing this design the Notre Dame property.
Yeah.
All right, any more discussion on that this evening then?
Nope.
All right, well, yeah, give us, you know, the next 2-3 weeks, whatever, to review, and we'll come up with a conceptual plan of, and, you know, talk to the fire department, I think is important, because we want to make sure that's available. All right, very good, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Appreciate the investment in the village. All right, there's nothing under new business tonight. So John, we have your zoning inspector's report. Anything particular you want to point out on there?
Oh, we got a couple new builds in Woodsong proposed in January. And then we got some occupancies that are outstanding that are yet to be done, but that's pretty much it. Business occupancies, yeah.
And, you know, spring's not here yet, but it'll be here before we know it, hopefully. I know in years past with the knee streets, you've done all the residential, you've pretty much walked and driven every quadrant of this village, whether it be commercial, industrial, or residential, right?
Correct.
So is there any particular plan anybody thinks we need for this year? You know, looking towards spring right now, or just do it, you know, how often, John, do you plan on like just driving the village and like looking at different areas? Or I know Dennis Szymanski always, you know, helped a lot with that.
Yeah, we did windshield surveys together and stuff. He was this, another set of eyes and the scribe while we were driving, so, you know, urban and rural gazing usually gets me in trouble while I'm driving, so. But, you know, we've got probably 10 properties that need some compliance, so I'm gonna be working on some friendly notifications soon, so people can get that work on the agenda for the next construction months. But pretty much anything residential and it's owner occupied, I market the Neat Streets program to them to help gain compliance, so.
Okay.
That's pretty much what we do. Yeah, it's broken down into quadrants. The village is broke down into 4 quadrants, of course, and, you know.
Right.
Well, street by street. Anybody has any spots that are, you know, of particular concern that need to be looked at, you know, please feel free to let me know and could take a look.
I do know in the streets meeting tonight, we discussed the sidewalk repair that we do every year in the village, you know, usually 10, 12, 15 spots or whatever. And so Joe's already got some in Woodsong he's planning on, but, you know, he told me, like I told him in Glen Valley, there's a couple sidewalk areas where there are real trips, you know, where you can really trip on the raised concrete. He said, just email him addresses. So as you guys are out and about in your neighborhoods, if you see sidewalks that are a danger or a threat, just let the village know and Joe will add it to his list. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions, discussion for tonight? All right, I would motion to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming down here tonight. Makes it much better.
Yeah, it does. I mean, all this discussion on Zoom would have been next to impossible.
Yeah.
All right, very good, folks.
Yep.
Masks off, beers up.
Push your buttons down.